Welcome to Caregiver SOS On Air, presented by the WellMed Charitable Foundation, with nationally known gerontologist Carol Zernial and award-winning veteran broadcaster Ron Aaron. This program provides health, wellness, and other information for caregivers who are vital to the health and well-being of so many people across our country. And now, here are your hosts, Ron Aaron and Carol Zernial.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the award-winning Caregiver SOS On Air. I'm Ron Aaron. Carol Zernial, our co-host, is with us. We've got a wonderful, fascinating topic. We're going to be talking about, can we prevent and even reverse Alzheimer's disease? Carol holds a master's degree in social gerontology, some 30 years experience in the field. She's co-chair of the Raise Family Caregiving Advisory Council and executive director of the WellMed Charitable Foundation. Carol, you have personal experience with family members who have suffered from dementia.
I have. My mother passed away with dementia. My mother-in-law passed away with dementia. And have been working in this field. I was way over here. I was like, oh, that was 40 years. Okay. And so this topic, this is the wish that we had 40 years ago. Can we find a cure? Is there some way out of this, what is probably everyone's biggest fear as they get older?
Well, let's take a moment and introduce our special guest. Dr. Andrew Pieper is a board-certified psychiatrist, a neuroscientist whose work sits at the intersection of clinical medicine and translational neuroscience. He earned his MD and PhD degrees from Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, where his doctoral work in neuroscience under Solomon Snyder focused on mechanisms of cell death. His work takes a look at a P7C3 class of neuroprotective compounds who may hold the key to recovering from advanced neurodegenerative disease. We're joined too by Dr. Kalyana Chauvi. She completed her bachelor's and master's degrees in biological science and biotechnology, followed by a PhD in neurotoxicology in India, and her PhD focused on the impact of organophosphorus toxins in the brain. Easy for me to say. She joined Dr. Pieper for her, postdoctoral work. So Andrew and Kalyana, let's start with you. What got you interested in finding a way to treat and maybe cure Alzheimer's disease? Dr. Pieper?
Oh, gosh. I think it would just be right along the lines of what you both just talked about, the magnitude of the problem. I don't know anybody who hasn't had somebody close to them in their life affected by Alzheimer's or some other form of related dementia. It's very poorly understood disease, and there's an incredible unmet need for effective treatments. And so we think it's perhaps the most important question that we should be addressing right now in science.
So have you found the magic juice? Because if so, I want a bottle of it.
Well, I wouldn't say we found the magic juice at all, per se, but I would say that the study that was led by Kalyana, Dr. Chauvi in our lab, has shown some unanticipated hope for the disease that suggests, for example, that we have the ability to potentially recover from advanced disease. At least we've shown it in mice so far. We haven't had any human studies, but what Dr. Chauvi showed has not been shown in any models of animal models of Alzheimer's disease before, which was that very advanced, sick, pathologic, symptomatic, cognitively impaired animals could recover their function and clear out their brain pathology when their brain energy levels were restored.
So you have little mice who have Alzheimer's disease.
Yeah. You can't perfectly, by any stretch, recapitulate Alzheimer's disease in an animal model. But what we do is we and all other investigators in the field take genes that are known to be linked to Alzheimer's disease in people, and we put those into mice, and they characteristically develop various signs and symptoms of the condition.
Well, tell us what's different. We've had a couple of studies recently where we hear I'm not going to say promises, but there's hints, right? There's hints that progress is being made. Tell us what's different about what you've learned.
Most important difference, I think, that we would like to emphasize is that we showed that the brain is actually dynamically able to recover from advanced condition. And even though cells may have died in the process, when we were able to restore energy levels, the active neurodegenerative processes stopped. The brain was able to function normally and then recover its ability to learn and remember things, which it couldn't previously do because the disease had been so advanced.
Well, it sounds amazing. So what does that look like in mice who have advanced disease, have been treated or whatever your study has done to them, and then they start moving around more? What does that look like?
Let's get that answer in just a moment, but let me take a second and remind folks who may have just joined us, you're listening to the award-winning Caregiver SOS On Air, a podcast available wherever you get your podcast. We're on the radio as well in several cities in Texas and Florida. And Dr. Pieper, Carol was asking, so what does it look like?
Yeah, so I think Kalyana should be the one to describe this because she was the first one to see this effect. And I think she was probably very excited about it. But essentially, she waited until animals were already symptomatic, meaning that they had learning problems. And then she started to treat them. And I'll let Kalyana describe the way that this was done.
So, like as Dr. Pieper said, we waited until animal developed the cognitive and behavior impairment, and like it was really exciting for me to see the animals when we usually perform a couple of behavior tests in our lab to check their cognitive function, and it was really I was really thrilled and excited to see that after treatment of P7C3, those kind of cognitive impairment were treated in the mice model of Alzheimer's disease. So that was really a striking features for us to focus on and see what are the basic mechanism behind that.
Go ahead.
So, for example, a mouse might not be able to remember where a hidden platform is in a maze of water when it has advanced disease. And that was one of the tests that we did. And after it had been treated for a few months, it was able to learn that just as a mouse could that never had the disease in the first place.
So if Alzheimer's disease is a progressive disease, right? We see it unfold and get worse over time. Is the recovery also progressive? So do you see greater and greater recovery over time?
That's a really good question, to which we do not know the answer. This was our first pilot study that Kalyana and I designed. And it was just to test this hypothesis about whether or not it could even be reversed, because that had never been looked at before. And so we just looked at a single time point just to see if it was possible. That alone took several years to do. And I think maybe Kalyana can talk about some of the future directions that we're looking at in terms of analyzing the phenomenon further.
Yeah, so we are looking further, whether earlier treatment, because some people are genetically modified in such a way that they have genetic impairment, so that they will develop Alzheimer's disease in future. So we are currently looking for if we start the treatment very early, even the any kind of disease complication arrive, does it is protective, and stop the treatment at some point, does it is protective in long term, and the rest of their life mice is healthy, or they don't develop those cognitive impairment, or those cognitive impairment are slowed down if we start the treatment very early in those mice.
What's the lifespan of a mouse, the mice in your study?
So for now, these mice, these disease mice are surviving around 16 months of age, and our endpoint is 12 months of age. And now we are further doing another study in which we waited them to super sick, like until 9 months of age, when they already develop all the like AD symptoms, like all impairment, like cognitive impairment and other behavioral impairment. And then we are treating them with P7C3 to take a look whether if the, as you asked earlier, like, is there a stages? So this is the kind of like subset of those, that study in which we waited them to be super sick. And then we are treating them to take a look whether it is protective or it is treating those cognitive impairment if we start the treatment when they already like develop all those like cognitive symptom at utmost level.
I need to mention, Dr. Pieper, that your work is being done where you work at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio. Coincidentally, it's where I got my undergraduate degree. And this is very exciting. Well, what does the administration think of the work you're doing?
Oh, I think everybody's pretty excited about it. In general, Case Western is just a wonderful place to do research and highly supportive environment. Couldn't be happier.
So what are the next steps?
Well, there are steps that we're taking in the laboratory to try to further understand this phenomenon in our animal models. And then there are steps that we're taking to try to get this into the clinic to test it in patients. Which would you like to hear about first?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, both. Let's talk about mice than humans, since that's the way you're going to go about it.
Sure.
Now we're going to pick this up in just a minute. Stay with us. I'm Ron Aaron, along with our co-host Carol Zernial, and we're talking with two researchers doing incredible work at Case Western Reserve University on perhaps the prevention and even reversal of Alzheimer's disease. Dr. Andrew Pieper is with us, and Dr. Kalyana Chauvi, both working together on mice at the moment. And perhaps the next step is humans. My hand's up. I'm volunteering. Stick with us. You're listening to Caregiver SOS On Air.
Well, thank you so much for listening to Caregiver SOS On Air. We're delighted to have you with us. We come to you every week with a discussion of an issue, a problem, some accomplishments involved in caregiving with more than 60 million caregivers across this country, but most thinking they are the Lone Rangers. We try to bring you the latest information and help that can make that job easier and more manageable. Caregiver SOS On Air takes a look at trends across this country. We provide tips on how to be a better caregiver, and most importantly, where you can go for help. On Caregiver SOS On Air, we try to give you what you need to make that caregiving manageable and to provide you with the help that can make your life easier. I'm Ron Aaron. Carol Zernial and I are delighted to co-host this program, and we're thrilled you've joined us on the award-winning Caregiver SOS On Air podcast, available everywhere, brought to you by WellMed Charitable Foundation.
Hello, friend. Hello, friend. Really good to see you once again. Hello, friend. Hello, friend. Really good to see you once again.
Well, thank you so much for sticking with us right here on the award-winning Caregiver SOS On Air. Our podcast available wherever you listen to your podcast. We're also on the radio in several cities in Texas and Florida as well. We're talking about research that in mice so far shows perhaps a way to prevent and even reverse Alzheimer's disease. And the next step, Dr. Pieper and Dr. Chauvi, is humans. How do you start experimenting on humans?
Okay, well,
because there's no shortage of people with dementia.
Yeah, the problem is immense. If we don't do something about it as a society, it's just going to cripple us in terms of human suffering and also financial cost. The way that medications get into people is they go through the traditional phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 clinical trial process. We have formed a company called Glengarry Brain Health, located here in Cleveland, that has obtained the license to develop these compounds for treatment of Alzheimer's as well as other dementia-related conditions. We are in the process of selecting our most efficacious version and predicted to be safe version of the molecule that we used in mice. And then we're going to pursue phase 1 clinical safety trials. We're hopeful that we can probably get there within 2 to 3 years.
Well, let me ask a question. There's the two ends of the spectrum. There's the prevention side, and I heard you mention protective, And then there's the sort of, I'll say, cure side, reverse it.
Mm-hmm.
How do you work on both ends? Do you have to make a decision to focus on one or the other?
We do work on both ends. Kalyani's experiments showed protection when it was given very early before the animals were symptomatic. And she also saw a reversal when she waited until they were very symptomatic and then started to treat. In terms of clinical trial, we haven't decided on the exact population that we would go after treating for the first to get FDA approval, but likely there would be opportunities for both outcome measures. If you were to select patients that were at a relatively early time point, then you would be able to see whether or not they're actually getting better, and you would also be able to see whether or not they're progressing, getting worse. So either outcome, of course, would be helpful. We hope and are optimistic that we might be able to see recovery of function based on what we have seen in the laboratory.
It's fascinating. So let's talk about what we in the general public hear. We hear plaques and tangles all the time. Plaques and tangles.
Mm-hmm.
Does this have anything to do with plaques and tangles?
Well, the way our molecule works is it helps a part of the cells function better. That part of the cell is called mitochondria. Mitochondria do many things, and one of the things they do is that they provide the energy that the cells need to fight off any type of injury or disease or a genetic problem or toxic insult, etc. The plaques and the tangles are problems that definitely are associated with Alzheimer's disease, and they can propagate aspects of the disease. But at least so far, the more recently developed and marketed products, medicines to fight the amyloid plaques have not been as effective as people hoped. And so that's not to say that amyloid plaques have no value at all in terms of targeting, but that does say that it hasn't been the silver bullet that everybody had hoped that it would be. And there's ample opportunity to find other ways to help address the problem. Our mechanism of action is upstream of all that. It has to do with a very fundamental way to keep cells healthy so that a lot of these secondary processes don't ever occur in the first place, and they don't cause a sort of a self-propagating cycle of toxicity. Okay. If you think about it, you're born with a gene that might increase your chances of developing Alzheimer's disease, and you have that gene expressed every day. But even in the most severe cases, you don't get, even in cases of early onset dementia, you don't get that for decades. And so why is that? Well, we think that the brain is able to fight off that genetic problem for a long time until it reaches a tipping point where it no longer has the proper ability to generate enough energy to repair itself. And that's when a subsequent phase comes in that causes a whole constellation of self-reinforcing secondary effects that then cause the symptoms. And we think that we can prevent those symptoms from those secondary effects from happening if we treat early enough. And we've also shown, Kalyani showed, that we can also halt those self-reinforcing secondary symptoms if we equip the brain with enough energy to fight them off. And those are things like DNA damage, axon degeneration, blood-brain barrier deterioration, neuroinflammation, changes to the tau protein, et cetera.
Let me ask you whether when you first got into this testing mice, was there an aha moment where you realized, wow, this is working?
I think Kalyani experienced the aha moment.
She's got a big smile.
She decoded the data, yeah.
Yeah, so like we do, as I told you earlier, we used to do behavior testing. So my most exciting phase was when I was doing a Morris water maze test. It is basically like this is a test to check the memory and the learning and memory impairment. So, sometimes like when we park our car some places and like we forget where is our car, we usually go that area again and again to see, like our brain say, oh, we park our car here, we park our car here. So the same way we used to do a kind of memory testing in the mice when I trained them for 5 days, and on like 6 days when I removed the platform, those Alzheimer disease mice, which treated with compound, they continuously go in that area and like they just remember, like they just try to find out the platform, like, oh, platform was here, where it is, where it is, where it is. So they always like try to go like around the area. But the ED animals, like which were not treated with those compound, they don't know, they don't remember. So those kind of difference when I saw in those very advanced mice, like advanced mice model of Alzheimer disease, that was super exciting for like us, like, oh wow, this compound is working.
Kalyani was the first person ever to see that it might be possible to reverse Alzheimer's disease. That's pretty awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting. As you're talking, I'm not trying to make a lot of the subject. I keep thinking of the video with the little mice that are driving in one of the experiments, and I'm thinking how well they would drive after you've treated them. They would absolutely get whatever it was, M&Ms or something.
Yeah. We don't have driving mice.
No driving mice.
Just
Okay, that's
swimming
phase
and
2.
walking. That's it. Yeah.
I used to carry a cartoon around in my wallet of mice sitting around smoking cigarettes. And one mouse says to the other, you know, I prefer when we were testing saccharin. And my guess is your mice prefer testing this compound.
Well, they do perform better in tasks of depression as well. So perhaps they do feel better. Certainly, I don't know, Kalyani, what do you think? What other benefits do you see with the mice when you give them our compound?
I think like compared to the sick mice, like definitely the compound treated mice feel happy and like like they're healthy. So I feel like yeah, they feel happy in those conditions compared to the complete pathology. And also they have like the kind of depression and other symptoms. So if they are not depressed with the compound and also, I think they are happy.
So, what have you learned about Alzheimer's that maybe you didn't know as a disease? You know, we used to think about it just as sort of this monolithic thing, and then there was the plaques and tangles. But what have you learned about Alzheimer's and looking for this compound?
Well, I think it's building right off of what you just said. The dogma has always been that it's a chronic, irreversible condition, that the best that we could hope for would be to prevent it or slow it down. But it's always been taught and considered to be irreversible. And what we have seen is that in these animal models, in both an amyloid-based model and a tau-based model, that both of these conditions, the brain can recover, even when the disease is very far advanced. And that just tells us it's a whole new way to think about conditions of dementia, which, like you said, have always been classically considered to be irreversible.
Well, there's been a little bit of wiggle room because we do know some people have plaques and tangles, right? But don't have Alzheimer's, don't show symptoms of Alzheimer's, which might go back to what you were talking about, energy.
Yeah. Well, that's, I'm sorry, my phone's ringing here. That's exactly what we had considered at the very beginning, was the fact that there are these people that have, they donate their brains to Alzheimer's studies as normal controls because they never had dementia. But then when their brains are examined by a pathologist after they pass away, it looks like they had Alzheimer's disease because they have florid amyloid plaque pathology that would be diagnostic of Alzheimer's disease. And that's one of the things we wondered is, why does that happen? And that goes right along with the question of why do people develop the disease at different ages, even when sometimes they're carrying the exact same high-risk gene. And we actually collaborated with an investigator in Los Angeles. Her name is Jessica Rexach. She's an amazing scientist, and she has collected these brains. And what she showed was that they have, and we published this in the same paper together, that those brains show expression patterns of various proteins that would correlate with our idea that it's the ability to preserve the energy levels that helps the brain maintain its resilience and not develop the disease. So I'm really glad you asked that question.
Well,
Now we only have a minute left, so very quickly, where does this end up? How long before that compound might be available to humans?
We're hoping to get it into clinical trials within 2 to 3 years.
And so clinical trials usually last how long, unless you have like overwhelming results one way or the other?
It depends on the It depends on the endpoint. To get all the way through phase 3 clinical trials, several years.
Several
Very long
years.
time.
All right,
And
so hang on,
multiple
Ron.
institutions. Yeah.
I got to hang on.
We
till
gotta
I'm-
hang
yeah,
on.
95.
All
I'll be
right.
there.
Okay, both of us.
So as you set up the model, make one of your test subjects an 84-year-old guy in San Antonio, Texas.
Who
Hey,
doesn't?
thank you
Who
both.
has no signs?
Duly noted.
but-
Yeah, speaking for a friend. Thank you both. I really appreciate you coming on at Case Western Reserve University. What a great study, and it is ongoing. For Carol Zernial, I'm Ron Aaron. Thanks for joining us on Caregiver SOS On Air.
The executive producer for Caregiver SOS On Air is Daniel Calderon. The producer is Sharice Pendleton. And the associate producer is Catherine Oglesby. We'll see you next week on Caregiver SOS On Air.
You've been listening to Caregiver SOS On Air, an exclusive presentation of the WellMed Charitable Foundation. We welcome emails with suggestions and comments on this program at radio@wellmed.net. Join co-hosts Carol Zernial and Ron Aaron next week for more on caregiving, improving the health and well-being of caregivers and their care recipients everywhere. For more on caregiving and podcasts of our programs, visit caregiversos.org.